Here.
Asante sana, together with Governor Nderitu MUREITHI, the chair of the Raila Odinga campaign board. Welcome to the program as well.
Thank you.
Now, getting straight into it, we first want to understand from you, and if you could make this an elevator pitch. If you were to tell Kenyans in 1 minute what separates your respective campaigns, how do you describe them? And Governor Nderitu, let me start with you on that. What separates your campaign from their campaign?
Well, but to begin with, of course, we have by far the better candidate in terms of trust and character and experience, and what the campaign then offers for the future of Kenya. And that is jobs, better healthcare, that is enhancement of political space and freedoms, a better implementation of the Constitution, and therefore fulfillment of our dream, our common dream as Kenya, which is Vision 2030, for the country to be middle income, industrializing country with a high quality of life. And just to be clear, middle income is about $15,000 per person per year, which would work out to 125,000 shillings per person per month. And that is a trajectory that Kenya has been on for the last 15 years, and we expect that indeed by 2030 we'll have reached that goal.
Governor Nanok is not beaten around the bush. What separates your campaign from his? He says better candidate. What's your take?
Thank you. I think for the first time we are offering a candidate, William Ruto, whom the UDA party nominated last week on the 15th, as the newcomer onto the presidential contention. He's a candidate with a very long experience, having served various administrations, various portfolios, have seen the good and bad, and is now able to launch himself and provide the leadership that is required. But again, he has a plan, and that plan has been articulated very well. It continues to be articulated, a bottom-up plan. It is people-centered. It is being informed by people in various public gatherings in counties, by various economic sectors, to inform priorities in the counties that his government is going to be focusing on. And on top of that, charters will be signed between the party, between William Ruto and all the candidates for UDA to commit to implement those priority programs across the country. That this plan looks at and is based on agricultural-led economic growth that is based on equity, that is based on enterprise, that is based on growing the competitiveness of our agricultural sector, because you know very well agricultural sector, 70% of the population depends on it. Mm-hmm. And we will have to look at it to be able to get out of the current problems we are experiencing. Very high unemployment, 1.7 million people out there without a job. Institutions of learning are churning out 800,000 young people out in the market, and only about 200,000 are being accommodated in both the formal and the informal sector. And the second pillar of that bottom-up is on businesses. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You very well know...
Keep it brief, please. Go ahead. 65%
of the Kenyan economy is reliant on small, micro and small institutions. Mm-hmm. And this is the focus. If we want to grow the economy, we've got to pump money inside. Government has to deliberately provide resources so that you invigorate the economy, you create demand, and you create demand for medium and larger industry. And in that way, you will be addressing issues of employment, you will be addressing issues of revenue, increasing revenue base, you will be minimizing the pressures that the few taxpayers are paying by lowering the taxes.
Okay.
So that is the focus of bottom-up.
That's what separates your campaign from...
In addition to this...
Okay, and I'll give you a chance to... We are going deeper into the economy discussion. I don't want you to finish all your points in your opening statement, Governor Nanok, and for you fellow viewers watching, those are the opening statements from both sides. For purposes of this discussion, we could say Azimio, Kenya Kwanza. But before we get deeper into the economy discussion, we want to understand, you sit here not just as campaign chiefs, as county chiefs as well, with your own political history. And we want to understand how you got to the positions you sit in right now. Let me start with you, Governor Mureithi. Before this, we did not know that you had close working relations with the ODM leader, Raila Odinga. Maybe help Kenyans understand, where do you fit with Honorable Raila Odinga, that he chose you as the chair, a very weighty position of his campaign board?
Well, I think they say that you will understand the character of a person by the friends they keep. I come to the table with, a serving governor of Laikipia, a high-performing serving governor of Laikipia. I come to the table having served in the 10th Parliament as an MP and assistant minister. I come to the table with 10 years global experience out of IFC and World Bank, having worked on 4 different continents. I come to the table as an expert in finance and economics, not just in my country, but globally, with a strong CV on actually what it takes to create jobs, so that we're not guessing and throwing choice slogans at ourselves, but as an expert who can with demonstrated data and experience on creating jobs. Of course, I've worked with the candidate in the 10th Parliament and in between, as well as now serving governor. And therefore, if you look at our relationship in the days of the National Economic and Social Council, when things were actually looking up in terms of expanding this economy and so on. So I also come to it, with a high reputation for integrity and fulfilling the promises that I've made to citizens in Laikipia, and demonstrated experience. And I think that that's what brings me to the table.
Governor, some would say that it also helps when your chief campaigner comes from the Mount Kenya region, a vote-rich area that everyone is very interested in.
That may very well be the case, but Laikipia is actually in the Rift Valley. As I think we were saying on the comments off camera, Laikipia is the size of Central Province, or what used to be called Central Province. Laikipia is home to 34 of Kenya's ethnicities. 34. So it is truly the face of Kenya and what Kenya should aspire to be in terms of Kenyans living together, working together, and not having to fight. Okay.
And Governor Nanok, I want to hear the same from you, because, some of your supporters who may have left the country 5 years ago and come back today will be surprised. They knew you as a staunch ally of Raila Odinga, and now here you are leading the campaign on the other side. How did this happen?
Thank you, Waiga. I actually joined politics in 2007. I used to work for international organizations, the UN, and a couple of NGOs for 15 years. And my entry into politics was when ODM was being formed. And I stuck with ODM for quite a while when I was a member of parliament in the 10th Parliament. And also I became an assistant minister, but also for the 2 terms that I was elected as the governor of Turkana. People had confidence in me to elect me for that period. But however, immediately after 2017, I had issues, interest issues that revolved around the promises we had made for the people of Turkana, and which were never fulfilled. Including even promises of nominating an MCA to represent the minority communities in Turkana that went into a different county. And I think all those are concerns, including also the boycotts that happened after 2017 election. I'm one of the counties that said we will not go into boycott. And so we regained together with William Ruto, because we remember very well 2007, William Ruto served as a member of parliament for ODM before he exited. And our meeting was because I come from very humble background. Governor Nderitu, we were brought up together. Our fathers happened to have farms next to each other. And he knows very well that I'm from very, very humble beginnings. I struggled through my education. I literally, for certain times when we are on holiday, worked in people's farms to be able to pay for my fare back to school. So I have gone through that process. So when William Ruto began talking about the bottom up, lifting the bottom, this gave me the opportunity that this is where I belong, and I should be able to deploy the experiences that I've acquired working in the country, working into Turkana, to make sure that this is a reality, that we are indeed exploiting and making sure that the potential of 45 million Kenyans is fully exploited, and the economic growth grows across the country. And inclusivity, the issues of inclusivity also attracted me. And this is the reason why, when I was asked by William Ruto and the rest of the team that is working with him to lead his presidential campaign, I did not look back. And I said, this is the opportunity to show that those from marginalized and pastoral communities can be able to provide leadership. And don't forget that I was the third chair of the Council of Governors.
That's correct.
Elected popularly by all the rest of the governors. And I served with distinction. And you remember very well, we had major conflicts during the first term of Jubilee administration between the county governments and the national government. And I was able to bring a rapport and to bring tensions that were existing to a level that was that brought everybody to the table to discuss issues.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you so much for that. I want us to dive into the state of the race, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And maybe we start with the ugly on this one. In democracies, mutual respect is part of the game. And we're not seeing a lot of that right now between your respective camps, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. And I'll give you specifics. For you, Kenya Kwanza, you don't call the presidential candidate on the other side by name. You call him Mzee wa Kitendawili. And for you on the Azimio side, many times you refer to the deputy president as Yule Mwizi. What does this say about the state of civility in our campaigns so far, led by your respective sides? Governor Ruto, let me start with you.
Well, first and foremost, you're quite right that for democracy to thrive, you need to accept that your neighbor or even your brother may have a view different from yours. And we truly come to this campaign with the idea that let us, or with the temperament that let us debate ideas about how to create jobs. For example, ourselves, we have a target of 5 million jobs. The question is, how are those jobs to be created? We come to the table, or to this debate, talking about a fuller implementation of the Constitution, better support for devolution. It is, of course, it has happened that in an occasion or two, that perhaps members of our team may have used words that are not as charitable to the other side. I think
an occasion or two is putting it lightly, Governor.
Yeah, well, I can only say that I'm aware of an occasion or two where even I have felt that perhaps the choice of word is less than charitable from a member, say, of our team in terms of describing members of the opposing team. This campaign really is about jobs, is about incomes, and who has the better idea, who has the better experience, who can be trusted to, in fact, create jobs and increase incomes, who can be trusted to continue with the trajectory of social protection, who can be trusted to ensure better health care for all of us. And I want to re-emphasize, in democracy, really the fundamental cardinal principle is that your neighbor truly will have a view different from yours. But that is what democracy is. It is for you to persuade your neighbor, or for your neighbor to persuade you. Now, some guys, honestly, some guys argue as though they're about to leave Kenya and go to some other place. We as Azimio, we are here to build Kenya and to ensure that we realize Vision 2030 together, to be a middle-income, industrializing country with a high quality, democratic, with a high quality of life. And that is our target we set ourselves as a team, including, as a team. If you go back in 2006, 2007, 2008, and that is a trajectory. And we are really very close to realizing the dream for Kenya, but the person and the team to get us there, to cross the Rubicon, the person is Raila Odinga and the team is Azimio.
Governor, we can disagree, but civility, surely, the terms that are being bandied around, I don't think you'd see that in other democracies.
You know, Wahiga, I want to stick to what ordinary Kenyans want, who are the majority. Credible studies have indicated that the biggest challenge to Kenyans now is the cost of living. The cost of food is very high.
I want to ask you to answer my question first.
There.
We are getting to that.
Yeah.
But the quality of our politics, Governor, does that concern you?
You know, I wanted to follow up to the answers you asked him,
yes,
so that I can also answer it. I was just giving a precursor to
briefly then.
And I said the challenges facing Kenyans now is the cost of living, the low productivity of their farms, the problems they are facing in the business sector, including the credit problems, and then the debt burden that is holding the country. And I think those challenges that Kenyans are facing every day, and unemployment that is facing 1.7 million Kenyans, those are the challenges that any serious presidential contender and any serious contender for any elective seat should be looking at answers. So when we describe our opponent, when we describe the Azimio candidate as Kitendawili, it's because his focus is much more on telling stories that you cannot hold him accountable to.
So you have no regrets about using that term?
No, that you hold him, you cannot hold him. We have no regret because he's telling stories that you can't get accountable to. Because when you discuss issues like very broader issues, very broader issues, it is so difficult to account. When you say Mandela moment, how do you account to the people in Laikipia, to the people in Turkana, to a Mandela moment? And I think this is the reason why we're describing as a guy who's just giving Kitendawili, making people laugh, but not actually addressing the critical issues that people want, and which William Ruto is addressing, and he's been speaking and articulating about them all the time. And this is going to be his focus moving forward in this particular campaign, and pointing out the weaknesses of his his competitors.
Governor Nderitu, do you have a response to that?
I have a response, and in most of my public statements, I have made it clear across board that, frankly, however good you are at throwing certain choice words at your opponent, and I can tell you, whether you are Azimio or you are something else, even if you become the Olympic champion of throwing insults, it does not add one job to Kenyans. Even if you are the All-Africa Games champion of insults, it does not increase the quality, it does not improve the quality of life of Kenyans, it does not increase incomes of Kenyans one iota. My plea to political actors across board is that why can't we debate ideas?
Yeah.
Let us debate ideas. Who has the better plan for how to create jobs here in this great republic? Why can't we debate ideas? Who has the better plan for ensuring that all Kenyans have a better quality of life, have a better health care that is working for them? Who has a better idea of protecting the nearly 1.7 million households who live in abject poverty? Who has a better idea for actually how to improve productivity in agriculture? And that team is Azimio, and the candidate is Raila, and I hope we get into the detail so we can lay them bare for all Kenyans.
Do you tell those in your camp that can we keep the focus on this instead of constantly...
Absolutely. And I would challenge my opponent and everybody to review footage of Nderitu MUREITHI speaking in most political rallies, and that is the refrain that I put out to everybody. My brother here has said he has no regrets that people are using unparliamentary language. I think that is really...
I didn't say that.
I would not wish that.
I didn't say that. Those are your words.
My colleague here also said
those are your words.
that he made two contradictory statements. He says, look, we grew up side by side, which is true, that our dads actually had chambers next to one another out in Laikipia. Okay? And then he says, but you know, we need to stick...
You haven't finished your statement.
Truth. He says, and I quote, that he came from a very humble background.
Yeah.
Okay. Yet he's also telling you that his dad's shamba and my dad's shamba, yeah, are next to one another. Now, peel that onion a little bit more.
Okay.
But I would like us, Wahiga, to get into the content, and if you allow me, I can dive right into it.
Okay, let me allow him to respond, then we get into that.
You know, what you have in front of you is a representation of a dynasty and a hustler. And indeed I am, because I know very well that the late Yusuf Haji and Honorable Machogu, who is a candidate now, a UDA candidate for governor in Kisii, paid my school fees. Helped my father pay my school fees because my father was a driver to them when they were there, DC Nyandarua. Away from that, I don't want to focus on myself. I want to focus on the candidates that are on the race. And this is the people we are representing here. What is the focus? Trust issues which he has raised. And it is critical when we are going into election, because if you look at our history, the previous elections from 2007, we've had issues with those elections, particularly around tensions, around violence, around boycotts. Those are the critical issues that we are going to be facing also on this election. Who can you trust to accept the election results? Who can you trust to not cause violence? Who can you trust to not cause economic boycotts? We've had those problems before. William Ruto has not been engaged on that. He has publicly stated he will accept the results of this election, and he will ensure the team from Kenya Kwanza that he will be with in the election are not going to be violent, and they are not going to exercise acts that are going to create tensions across the country. And really, that is where that candidate is completely different with the Azimio candidate, because he has said if. He has not accepted to accept the election results. He has said if. And if stands for so many things. So, and I think until he comes out publicly that he will commit to it, that we will all support the IEBC to oversee the elections, to provide its support so that credible elections are conducted, to ensure that we all work bipartisan, to ensure that the IEBC gets all the sufficient funds is required. And then, of course, expected to do a proper, credible election, and then commit to it so that we assure Kenyans that we are indeed committed to an economic revolution. You remember very well, William Ruto was the first to convert the Kenyan politics from the politics of ethnicity, the politics of positions, to the politics of the economy. And I think you have to give it to that man. You have to give it to the entire Kenya Kwanza team for moving the debate on this year's election towards the economy. So and we provide that leadership.
What you're telling Governor Nderitu is you set the pace, they are following, is that?
We have set the pace, they are copying.
They are copying.
Because they have no other alternative to
Governor Nderitu,
follow.
As you talk about the economy, start from this point. What is the biggest undoing of governance that has affected our economy today? If you ask Kenyans, opinion polls show that their biggest concern is unemployment and cost of living and corruption as well. What caused that? What has led us to this point?
Firstly, let me start off by just disabusing my colleague here.
Proceed.
1997, Kibaki's campaign is on the economy. As a matter of fact, is on a question of whether we can create 500,000 jobs per year. 2002, the NARC revolution is on the economy. And we actually moved real incomes from 7,000 shillings per person per month to 33,000 shillings per person per month. It has always been about economy. But what is it, from a governance point of view, that makes the challenges facing Kenyans worse? It is corruption. Now, let's take the cost of energy. The cost of energy, electricity, we are paying very high bills. Small manufacturers pay maybe 4 times what their colleagues are paying, their competitors in India and China. Why? Because of deals that were less than kosher in the past. In the immediate history of Kenya, the president had to make dramatic changes to the leadership of the energy ministry in order to deal with this exact question. So corruption and poor governance are the center of why the cost of living is high. Let me repeat, corruption and poor governance are in fact at the center of why the cost of living is high. Now, my candidate starts off, first of all, by making a firm commitment, a clear commitment to tackling corruption head on. And again, look, and I don't want to cast aspersions here, but frankly, sometimes, if you got in a bus, and you found that half the people on that bus had cases in court, you might begin to ask, am I in the right bus or not? Now, our colleagues, the truth of the matter is that many of leaders in that team have one case or another relating to governance and corruption. And I'm not saying they are guilty. I'm just saying they have all these cases. How come all the people with cases are on that side and all the people without cases are on the Azimio side? So corruption. But let us go deeper into a couple of questions here. How do you grow agriculture? The smallholder agriculture requires, frankly, two things to be able to grow her productivity from where it is today to a higher level. Number one, machines and tools. Okay. Number two, access to irrigation. Now, the difference between what our competitors are saying and ourselves is this. We know that. That's why we are focused on manufacturing, because unless we make the machines and tools that the farmer needs in order to increase her productivity, we can throw all the slogans we want. It is not going to happen. I would challenge my colleague here to show us one economy in the world that was able to become middle income, that was able to grow the productivity of agriculture without manufacturing. Just one.
Let him respond. The challenge is to you, Governor Nanok.
Thank you. I think he went into the second phase of issues which we are not asked. But let me first begin from your immediate question. You know, I am surprised my colleague and my friend is an economist, but he's not addressing the real issues of why we are where we are. Essentially, I can tell you for the last 9 years, the bigger focus for government has been on infrastructure, physical infrastructure. And this is where a lot of resources have gone into, to the expense of productivity. We've invested very little money on production, particularly on agricultural production. You know very well that the Big Four had one of the pillars was on agricultural production. That didn't take off as was expected. And this is a problem because we have huge infrastructure. You have a very huge railway, which we have very little to move on, to even export. So I think those are the challenges. And then, of course, we have always been a food deficit country. And because of our productivity is very low, the amount of deliberate support that is being provided to farmers is not sufficient for us to be able to meet our food needs. Yet that potential exists. And of course, I totally agree. The issues of corruption and governance as an issue, they are a critical issue. And you've heard William Ruto addressing and saying he will address it. And he has given a deliberate point of how he'll address it. Because the Constitution provides independent institutions that are supposed to address issues of corruption. You have the judiciary. The judiciary has been struggling. It has been struggling with fewer judges. It has been struggling with no funds because the judicial fund has never been operationalized. How do you expect it to dispense justice? Both issues on corruption and all the others.
Who was supposed to operationalize the judiciary fund?
The government of the day is supposed to be operationalizing the judiciary fund. Second issue, and you talked about...
I thought you were going to get deeper into...
No, I wanted to tell you...
President Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto.
I wanted to tell you the issues around governance and corruption. Second issue is also the independence of the independent institutions like EACC and the security institutions. that is supposed to be dealing with this. I think you know very well those institutions are being politically led and managed. If these institutions are led to have their own independence, all the issues of suspected corruption who are across the political structure, whether in Azimio, whether in Kenya Kwanza, they're there. But give those political institutions the latitude to do their job. Give them funds that they can account for, that they can manage on their own. And that will give us a way out of issues of addressing corruption.
Tell me this, Governor Nanok, because I want you to respond to this as he also responds to this.
Let me mention one more.
How much responsibility does your candidate or your aspirant bear for the state that we find ourselves in today as a country?
From what I know, my candidate is the Deputy President of Kenya.